Hey guys, what's going on? It's Eli, back with another review video. And that's right, you read the title, you know exactly what documentary it is that I'm reviewing. And yeah, I've been meaning to take a look at this documentary, and especially this documentary being right up my alley, especially for a lot of us, who love animation, love cartoons, the voices, and, especially those, us being on the autism spectrum. I think you get my point. Yeah, it's obvious. So that's right. I am finally reviewing this documentary that's all about cartoon voices. Well, I mean, not just cartoons, but just a lot when it comes to voice acting. Not just with cartoons, but other animation material to, say, commercials or video games especially. All of the above. Need I go on? Yes, that's right. I am finally reviewing the documentary from John DiMaggio himself, 2013's I Know That Voice. Yes, the documentary I Know That Voice. I'm glad to have finally have gotten around to watching this documentary, and because I, of course, was familiar and aware of this documentary for a while, and, especially because, seen, some people on YouTube, social media, talking about this documentary. Like, as an example, if any of you know Animat Electric Dragon 505, one of my favorite top 10 lists that he's done are animation documentaries. And this one, I believe as though, this was an honorable mention, which was very fitting because, voices being very important to animation. Yeah, because, and I'll get into that later, because what the voice actors, those that are a part of this documentary, what they talk about with, voices and, with voices having a huge part in animation, with characters and so on. Yeah, so it was a nice honorable mention that Animat had for his top 10 list of animation documentaries and so on. And if you know that specific documentary that he's done and so on, yeah. But anyways, and I don't know what took me so long to get around to this. Well, I've said this before, and you know this as well. Some movies or shows, documentaries, whatever, that, you never get around to. Until, say, now, with me, and with this documentary. You get the point. Yeah. Of course, for me, this documentary did not disappoint. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, from beginning to end. And the fact that John DiMaggio himself, most notably the voice of Bender, being responsible for this documentary and what he brought to this documentary. Not just him, but, some of the writers, producers. There was John, there was Lawrence Shapiro, if I'm saying his last name right, who was the director of this documentary, as well as Tommy Reed. Yeah, all three of these guys were responsible for bringing us this documentary, when it, all about voice acting and so on. What this documentary had to offer, and most notably from John, and with what he explains towards the end of this documentary, what he wanted to bring to this documentary is just amazing. And also, John, he refers and calls his fellow voice acting buddies in this documentary his peers. Okay? Well, okay, I didn't really know about that specifically, but okay. But yeah, so, him making this documentary along with Lawrence and Tommy and wanting to, honor his fellow peers and to show their faces, and really, because with amount of love and support and appreciation to all of the voice actors Those that have, entertained us, whether on our televisions or, when watching whatever animation cartoon it is on, say, video, DVD, yeah. And them in this documentary and talking about, facts and when it comes to voice acting and going into the voice acting business and so on. What more do I have to say? It's amazing. It's really amazing. Big thumbs up. Big thumbs up to John DiMaggio, Lawrence Shapiro, and Tommy Reed for what they brought to this documentary, and to all of the voice actors, or as John DiMaggio refers to them in the documentary, peers. Yeah. Fantastic. Fantastic. All right, so, as always, for me, read the description / the story, but it is a short one, but yeah. Filmmaker Lawrence Shapiro discusses voiceover acting with the talented people behind the characters. Well, it's mainly John DiMaggio that does that, so yeah. And another description / the story, because why not, read that as well. Yeah, so several voice actors discuss their art and their careers. Yeah. Okay, so getting into the documentary itself. Well, first off, to name out all who is in and a part of this documentary. Well, as mentioned, of course, John DiMaggio himself. There's Charlie Adler, Pamela Adlon, the voice of Bobby from King of the Hill, Carlos Alazaretsky, if I'm getting his last name right, and bear with me, because I may mispronounce some of their names, and you know me sometimes, but I'm sure you'll know. And any of you that have seen this documentary, you know who's in this documentary. Jack Angel, the late Edward Asner, Hank Azaria, Dietrich Bader, D. Bradley Baker, Eric Bauza, yeah, I know who I'm talking about, and you know who it is, but yeah. Jeff Bennett, Bob Bergen, Robert S. Bichard, I think I'm saying that right, Justin Brinsfield, yeah, some of them being like casting directors or agents that make an appearance in this documentary, just a heads up, Steve Bloom, Chris Borders, Devin Bowman, Clancy Brown, Corey Burton, Nancy Cartwright, David X. Cohen, Kevin Conroy, the late Kevin Conroy, Matt Corey, Jim Cummings, Elizabeth Daly, Gray Griffin, Debbie Derryberry, Jessica DeCiso, if I'm saying that right, and there he is, John DiMaggio, Robert Atkin Downs, if I'm saying that right, Mark Evaneri, I think, Bill Farmer, David Faustino, if I'm saying that right, the late June Foray, Pat Fraley, the late Stan Fredberg, I think, Nika Futterman, Morgan Gerard, Frank Gladstone, Seth Green, Matt Groening, Mark Hamill, Jim Hanks, Jess Harnell, Peter Hastings, David Herman, Richard Stephen Horvitz, Gordon Hunt, Danny Jacobs, Tom Kane, David Kay, Josh Keaton, Tom Kenny, Maurice LaMarche, Phil LaMarr, Meredith Lane, Janet Waldo, Jeff Lenberg, Rachel McFarlane, Jason Marston, Jeff Swampy Marsh, Mona Marshall, Chuck McCann, Mary Elizabeth McLean, Jenny McSwain, Jim Meskimen, if I'm saying that right, Brecken Mayer, Kate Miller, Lorraine Newman, Darren Norris, Nolan North, Colleen O'Shaughnessy, if I'm saying that right, the voice of Tails, most notably in the Sonic the Hedgehog films, Gary Owens, Rob Paulson, Don Pitts, Dan Povenmire, Kevin Michael Richardson, Andrea Romano, Stephen Root, Marion Ross, Lisa Schaffer, if I'm saying that right, Lisa is a voice director. She's one of the voice directors that makes an appearance in this. Dana Snyder, Kath Suzy, Tara Strong, Cree Summer, Lee Sursinski, James Arnold Taylor, Jamie Tomasin, Alana Uppick, if I'm saying that right, Kari Walgreen, Jim Ward, Pendelet Ward, Billy West, Gary Anthony Williams, Wally Wingard, Cedric Yarbrough, if I'm saying that right, and Chris Zimmerman, and also the other cast members that are, like, cast members of this documentary that are in this: Greg Berger, Gerald Burke, Kevin Connolly, Kelly Foley Downs, Dave Filoni, Jennifer Hale, Tom Lawless, Tom McGrath, the voice of Skipper from Penguins of Madagascar, Bill Ratner, Will Ryan, Tom Cito, Carlos Soto Alongo, if I'm saying it right, Wes Stevens, James Patrick Stewart, Fred Tatasciore, Lauren Tom, Andre Toyas, Nancy Wolfson, David Wright, and yeah, some of them that appear in this, but just with archival footage, like Mel Blanc, and there's Jeremy Shada, Sarah Jane Sherman, and Nicholas Zolito, and yeah, Eric Lewis, Heather Dame, that's about it, yeah. So there you go. Yeah, because why not? Name everybody that's a part of this. Why not? And for this, yeah, seems acceptable, yeah. Okay, so, getting into the documentary itself, because, yeah, yeah, well, for this, I'm just going to talk randomly, since it's a documentary, you know. Yeah, because, yeah, again, it's amazing what goes down in this documentary. And all of the voice actors, voice actresses, and with special appearances from, say, the voice directors, voice casting directors, and so on, even a few other people that have, you know, being in the voice acting business, like Mark Hamill, of course, and how we get a special appearance of Jim Hanks, the brother of Tom Hanks, who pretty much, yeah, voices Woody for almost every single Toy Story product, like whether if it's the toys or most notably the video games, yeah. And a few others, yeah. Even say, yeah, Matt Groening and the creator. I know I said his name. Yeah, the creator of Adventure Time making an appearance as well. And you know, there are a few people that it's obvious because not every single voice actor, voice actress being a part of this. And that especially goes for, say, two well-known and legendary voice talents, Frank Welker and Tress MacNeille, because apparently both of them turned down the offer of being a part of this documentary. I'd like to think that probably it's not that they were like, oh, we don't want to be a part of this. No, just good riddance. No, probably not like that. They just simply passed on being a part of it, I guess. That's my guess. Come on, you know, knowing both of them, just, you know. Besides, I mean, it would have been great to have both of them be a part of this documentary. And as I just mentioned, two fantastic voice talents. Are you kidding? But others that do not make an appearances in this documentary, actually some that, for me personally, I was thinking to myself, and while watching the documentary, you know, it would have been nice if so-and-so made an appearance. Like how we do have both voices of Billy and Mandy from the Grim Adventures, you know, a part of this documentary. But what about Greg Eagles, the voice of Grim? That would have been nice if he made an appearance in this. Or what about, say, okay, if we have Matt Groening and the guy who created Adventure Time, why not say Seth MacFarlane? We have Seth Green. It would have been nice if, maybe, possibly, if Seth MacFarlane was able to make an appearance in this documentary. Oh, yeah, because that would have been great, too. But, yeah. Oh, not to mention, like, well, we do have Nancy Cartwright. What about some of the others, like say, Dan Castellaneta? Well, yeah, Nancy Cartwright and Hank Azaria, two of the big-time voice cast members of The Simpsons. We have them, but it would have been nice. But, you know, probably wouldn't really have been necessary, you know. Again, as I mentioned, Dan Castellaneta, Homer Simpson, Krusty the Clown, just saying, you know. And maybe you guys would feel the same way too, possibly, you know. Any of you that have watched this documentary and you wish, you know, would have been nice if so-and-so made an appearance. Yeah. And also, another big-time person right next to, say, like, Mark Hamill, Dietrich Bader, and such, like, appearing in this, as mentioned, the late Ed Asner. Well, because most notably, his voice work in Disney and Pixar's Up, Carl Fredricksen. Yeah. But, yeah. So the stuff that the voice actors and actresses, and as well as those that, well, they sometimes lend their voices, like Matt Groening and, the creator of Adventure Time. Yeah, they've done a couple of voices. Like, I never knew until watching this documentary, Matt Groening is the voice of Maggie Simpson's pacifier. Yeah, maybe I knew, but I must have forgotten, but, and the creator voicing, is it Lumpy, like, from Adventure Time? I think you know who I'm talking about, and you know who the creator of Adventure Time voices on his show, right? So yeah, but yeah, and I didn't miss anybody, did I? Tom Kenny, Jess Harnell? No, obviously I didn't, because I named all of them pretty much. But anyways, well, because the stuff that they talk about, because when it comes to, like, say, trying to get into the business of voice acting, going into the Hollywood business, and as they point out, because having to go to Los Angeles, Hollywood itself, and getting there, going to a microphone, and just doing a voice, and also, them at times, like, talking about legends, yeah, because from, say, Mel Blanc, Daws Butler, they were definitely, at that time, some of the most well-known and respected voice talents of animation. I mean, well, let's face it, Mel Blanc, the man of 100 voices, of the Looney Tunes, voicing all of the Looney Tune characters, almost. There have been times, of course, and I'm sure you know, that just a few characters that Mel Blanc did not voice, like most notably Granny, of course, Elmer Fudd, the Genie, Smokey, that was Mr. Howell, himself from Gilligan's Island, Jim Backus, and and Daws Butler, the voice of a good chunk of Hanna-Barbera characters, duh, from Yogi Bear and Huckleberry Hound, two of the biggies from Hanna-Barbera, and how, because some of them have looked up to, say, Mel Blanc and Daws Butler, and even, like, the mentioning of Mel Blanc's automobile accident, for those of you that do or do not know, and how Mel Blanc, what saved him from that coma, that horrible accident, that horrible automobile accident, and the fact that he broke every single bone in his body, it was the Looney Tunes voices that saved his life. How so connected those voices were to Mel. Oh yeah. And the fact that Mel still managed to record for any new Looney Tunes short at his home, yeah. And the fact that some of the, voice actors that got to work alongside with Mel, they went to his home and recorded with him. That's amazing, So good right there. And also, like, when it comes to those that are in this documentary, each of them talking about how they got into the voice acting business. Most notably Billy West talking about how, trying to be on the radio and, who can do an impression of Mel Blanc, just picking up the phone and calling up the radio station, and, well, yeah, Billy West doing, say, Daffy Duck, Bugs Bunny, Porky Pig, yeah. And sure enough, because look where Billy would go to next, yeah. And for everybody else, because each of them talking about, where they were at the time, and right as they were getting into the business of voice acting. And also, another part in this documentary, impressions, how some of them, even, like, if at times, and if by any chance they are not really able to do impressions of celebrities, like say, Christopher Walken, Marlon Brando, George W. Bush, and so on, so, yeah, you're still doing a character, according to one of them, even if you're not able to really do a spot-on impression of any celebrity or figure, you're still doing a character, And with your attempt to do an impression of that, you can still make some use of it, right? So, yeah. And some of them that can do some pretty good impressions, like, well, as mentioned, Christopher Walken, from Jess Harnell, Nolan North, James Arnold Taylor, I'm pretty sure, yeah. Those that can do spot-on impressions of Christopher Walken. Even I can a little bit, you know. Wow, oh, this place is bananas. I've got a fever, and the only cure is some more cowbell. You're welcome. And also, at times, like, them talking about some characters, yeah, like, they've enjoyed doing. Or say, when it came to each of them, some of them talking about trying to find the right voice for this specific character. And one of the things that they like to do, I know that Nolan North most notably talked about this. Well, looking at some concept art, you know, drawings of this character, and I think that's very important, yeah. Because, well, it just doesn't seem right to just proceed on and just to do a voice. No, you have to look at a character that has been drawn and designed, and how that character looks specifically, and to try to come up with a perfect voice that says it all and matches this character. It's like, most notably, when it came to Futurama, John DiMaggio and Matt Groening, they talk about this where, well, for Matt Groening, because he explains that they didn't know what Bender was going to sound like, yeah, because, you know, looking back and just, like, you know, and as of now, like, the voice that John DiMaggio brings to our favorite robot from Futurama, oh yeah. And, you know, because when it came to trying to see who could be the voice for Bender, Billy West was one of them. He actually auditioned for Bender, and he tried to do Bender as like a construction working guy, you know, that kind of voice. But when it came to, say, John DiMaggio, when John DiMaggio entered the picture, well, 3 combinations. One of them being the late Slim Pickens. One where, you know, some drunk guy and such, and another that John DiMaggio knew, I think at school or something, you know, with what he says. Combining all of them together, and you've got Bender, just how he sounds like, oh, that's fantastic, you know. And I love how when John, doing an impression of Slim Pickens, quoting one of Slim Pickens' lines from Mel Brooks' Blazing Saddles, you know, what in the wild, Sam, you know, is going on here? Just so funny. Yeah, and the others that, you know, talk about when finding the voice for a specific character. And also, because some clips that they show from, say, Adventure Time, Phineas and Ferb, The Penguins of Madagascar, Star Wars The Clone Wars, well, and especially at that time and when this documentary came out, those shows being on the air, not to mention because, well, from, say, Penguins of Madagascar and Star Wars The Clone Wars, both of those shows coming to an end, yeah, and especially, there's a moment in this documentary where, well, yeah, because obviously John DiMaggio knew that, you know, this had to be recorded, and for this documentary that they were working on, you know, I Know That Voice, the last recording session for Penguins of Madagascar, the Nickelodeon show, yeah, they were in the studio. Yeah, John DiMaggio, Jeff Bennett, Tom McGrath, again, the voice of Skipper. They were there, and with the lines that they were recording, it's pretty funny. Because the noises that Rico makes, John DiMaggio voicing Rico, yeah. And, well, when it came to a wrap, yeah, that was the end of an era, you know, for a piece of DreamWorks material on Nickelodeon. Because, yeah, as we all know, DreamWorks at that time, having a few materials of their own on, well, Nickelodeon, because at that time, of course, DreamWorks being a part of Paramount, and Paramount, you know, distributing most of their films. So, yeah, so them at the last recording session, and there was a cake, and, Penguins of Madagascar, 2008 to 2012, that whole thing, yeah. Yes, it's very touching and sad, of course, yeah. Especially I really enjoyed Penguins of Madagascar. Not to mention that Penguins of Madagascar coming to an end just 2 years before the Penguins would finally get a movie of their own. Yeah, because we started off with the Penguins having a TV show, which was really good, but, isn't it obvious that, and it seems it seems to make sense for, at least for the Penguins, to have a movie of their own, and sure enough, we did. And, okay, with Penguins of Madagascar out of the way, on Star Wars The Clone Wars, talking more about Star Wars The Clone Wars, I loved what was talked about in I Know That Voice with Star Wars The Clone Wars. From Clancy Brown, James Arnold Taylor, Tom Kane, and Dave Filoni. And D. Bradley Baker, yeah, because what they had to say when it came to talking a little bit about Star Wars The Clone Wars, and Clancy Brown especially, because watching and seeing Star Wars The Clone Wars, this piece of Star Wars material, and with its animation, and something that just feels nostalgic, according to Clancy Brown, and what he said, like, his 7-year-old boner, however he says it, I swear, that's what he says, like, 17-year-old boner, what he says in the documentary, hard to explain, but if you've seen this documentary, you know. But, yeah, he makes a good point. Clancy Brown makes a very good point. Really, like, there hadn't been anything like Star Wars The Clone Wars, and those like me, having grown up with Star Wars The Clone Wars, like, the experience, and when it was on air on Cartoon Network, astounding. What more do I have to say? Yeah. And Dave Filoni, because talking about when it comes to bringing in those and for the voices of the characters, and most notably, for James Arnold Taylor, he was asked not to do an impression of Ewan McGregor, just do his own thing. Like, Obi-Wan Kenobi in The Clone Wars is not Alec Guinness and is not Ewan McGregor. So what James Arnold Taylor did, I mean, it's obvious that that Obi-Wan in The Clone Wars would still have to sound exactly as to what was brought from Guinness and McGregor, right? So with Arnold, he took a bit of Alec Guinness, these aren't the droids you're looking for, and a bit of Ewan McGregor, I have a bad feeling about this, because, as he says the lines, combining it, and how he voiced Obi-Wan Kenobi in The Clone Wars. Amazing. Yeah. Well, and obviously, the same goes for, say, Corey Burton when it came to voicing Count Dooku, or, say, Matt Lantern, the voice of Anakin Skywalker. And, well, obviously, the same goes for Tom Kane and for anybody else, with the exception of some of those that did reprise their roles from the movies. Like, of course, most notably, Ahmed Best as Jar Jar Binks and Liam Neeson as Qui-Gon Jinn. So, yeah. With the exception of those that, reprised their roles from the movies. But, yeah. So it's amazing, because, like, how, when it coming up with voices and just, like, mixing them up together, smashing them up, and what we get, just, it's amazing. And seeing some clips of, them in the recording booths, like, whether if it's, say, Nickelodeon, or Disney, Cartoon Network, those being the biggies, oh yeah, or any other, big studios that heavily does animation, but definitely, as I said, Cartoon Network, Disney, Nickelodeon, yeah, them being the three biggies of animation. And also, video games. Video games especially one big thing when it comes to video games, the fact that on the pages that they read in the recording booth, like, different takes of grunts and injury sounds, just, that whole thing. Well, I mean, it's obvious because, of course they gotta make different sounds, but even though, we know how video games work, and whenever, like, say, a character, like, gets hit in the face, or they jump, like, just that whole thing. Yeah, it's pretty good. Those that do a lot of video games, like, most notably, Nolan North, and James Arnold Taylor as well, and a bunch of others, and Jennifer Hale, yeah, Jennifer Hale especially, and Corey Burton as well. Yeah, just what they say about the video games and when it comes to voice acting in the video games, well, facts. I mean, everything that they talk about in this documentary, no matter what, facts, 100% facts on how voice acting is done, and that is what's important, okay? Also, the mentioning of, say, celebrities, like, you know, those that could possibly recognize and identify voice actors, like, I don't know, like, out on the street or something, like Jim Hanks, again, Jim Hanks, Tom Hanks' brother, making an appearance in this documentary, his side on this, and, you know, the fact that he had at times been out on the road with his brother, Tom, and knows what it's like out there, and how generous Tom Hanks has been at times to the people and the fans and such, what Jim Hanks explains. And, or even say, Jess Harnell, the story that Jess Harnell explains, well, because, traveling to Florida and going to Disney World, and Florida, that's where his mother lives. Well, coming across this kid and noticing that this kid is wearing an Animaniac shirt and starts to interact with the kid and tell the kid that he is the voice of Wacko. And the kid, I think Jess Harnell says he's like 15 or something. I think so, yeah. Just being so rude to Jess Harnell. Like, well, you know, for that kid's age, like, how is he really supposed to know this? And with the whole thing of voice actors and such. Come on. I'd like to imagine that probably that kid, and if by any chance he saw that documentary, he was like, pardon my French, you know, holy shit, what was wrong with me? You know what I'm saying? Just, yeah. And how Jess Harnell is doing the voice, like, oh, I'm having fun here in Disney World, and, you know, and the kid, like, saying back at Jess, like, I can do the voice too. Like, oh my gosh. Well, again, and as I just explained, for that kid's age, you know. And the other stories that they talk about, some of them, like, running into people and such. Also, another mentioning on Mark Hamill, because, well, obviously, Batman being talked about a little, you know, from, say, Mark Hamill and Kevin Conroy. Well, because, you know, Mark Hamill talking about, like, you know, finding the voice for Joker, and the mentioning of the Joker's teeth, because I don't think I quite really knew this, that, like, the Joker's teeth, like, I think, yeah, being inspired from the Beatles, that blue character, you know, what Mark Hamill says, yeah. And Mark Hamill, very nice of him, you know, praising all the other voice actors that have voiced Joker, and what he says about Kevin Michael Richardson. He at first says that he does not like Kevin Michael Richardson's Joker voice. When I was watching the documentary, I was like, what? Like, you know, but Mark was joking. He establishes not long after that he was joking. But he did say that he was jealous towards Kevin Michael Richardson because Kevin Michael Richardson won an Emmy for his voice performance as the Joker, and Mark Hamill never did. That is messed up. I'm not joking. Like, that's a crime. How dare, like, anybody from the Batman animated series, and I'm sure you guys would agree too, how dare neither Mark Hamill, I don't know about Kevin Conroy, maybe possibly, nobody, and most notably Mark Hamill, according to Mark Hamill, not being nominated for an Emmy! Are you serious? Not for his Joker performance! His voice performance, I should say. Why? That, again, that's a crime! It really is. Emmys! What were you thinking? Just... Yeah, I'm sure you guys probably would feel the same way too. But I mean, I take it, and I can tell, I guess, yeah, from Mark Hamill, like, not letting this really upset him, but still. Well, and obviously, joking around and just, you know, poking fun at Kevin Michael Richardson, you know, because he won an Emmy and I didn't for Joker. Just, ugh. Yeah. And yeah, because Kevin Michael Richardson, well, him voicing the Joker, well, obviously, because I'm sure you guys know this, that, yeah, Kevin Michael Richardson voiced the Joker for The Batman from the early 2000s, yeah. That piece of Batman animation, yeah. And in that, because, well, Tom Kenny, being in this documentary, he was the voice of the Penguin. And not to mention, Freddy Krueger himself, Robert Englund, the voice of the Riddler, and Clancy Brown. Well, we know him best as, say, the voice of Lex Luthor. However, in the Batman animated series from the early 2000s, he voiced Mr. Freeze. I mean, yeah, that's pretty good. I mean, come on, this is Clancy Brown we're talking about. Also, can't forget to mention this. There's at one point where a handful of the voice actors, they're reading some Shakespeare. It's pretty funny in the music that plays. Each of them, like, when cutting to each of the voice actors and, you know, reading Shakespeare, it's so funny, yeah. And also, another biggie for the voice actors are conventions. Oh, yeah. And this being saved for last in the documentary, yeah, because when it comes to, say, Comic-Con and meeting the fans, and especially because at that time, well, Adventure Time going to Comic-Con, but not just Adventure Time, well, obviously, other big-time animated shows, well, like, say, My Little Pony, Star Wars The Clone Wars, Phineas and Ferb, and the panels that they had at Comic-Con, and, you know, seen some little, like, backstage footage, and that's exclusively a part of this documentary. John DiMaggio going to Comic-Con, and you never know whom you're going to run into. Your fellow peers, as John DiMaggio says, you know, fellow voice actors, pretty much. Yeah. And, well, because John DiMaggio going to his booth, or, say, going to the Adventure Time panel, and, yeah, because hanging out with his voice acting buddies, his peers, as he says, and all the other, like, animation materials that John DiMaggio is a part of, and how, you know, they're at Comic-Con, from Adventure Time and, Futurama. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, again, Comic-Con and conventions in general, having a huge, influence, and, well, voice actors having a huge part of conventions, Comic-Con, need I go on. Other stuff that was talked about in this documentary, well, like, say, where at one point in this documentary, I don't know, because, like, when anybody watching this documentary, you know, again, just, I don't know, because, when it comes to, say, like, most notably John DiMaggio, or any other few white voice actors, sometimes voicing black characters, most notably John DiMaggio. Oh, yeah. You know, most notably since, well, John DiMaggio, some characters that he has voiced, well, being portrayed like a black stereotype or something, like say, Earl, one of the police officers from Futurama, the robot, well, having a voice that's like a black person, you know, oh yeah. And the fact that John DiMaggio, I think, yeah, Kevin Michael Richardson, as well as, I think, yeah, Phil LaMarr, I'm pretty sure, and I think, yeah, Kevin Michael Richardson, and What's-Him-Face, oh yeah, and Cedric Yarbrough, and I think, yeah, Gary Anthony Williams, I'm pretty sure, yeah, because, them being a part of this animated web series, I think, yeah, on YouTube. I'll put the name of it in a text, yeah. But I'm sure you guys know, yeah. And the fact that some of them, most notably John DiMaggio, voicing black characters, and you know what? They're quite good at it. And the comments that the others make in this documentary, most notably Grey Griffin, because Grey Delilah, Grey Griffin, because what she describes and says about John DiMaggio and how John DiMaggio's personality is, well, I mean, that's coming from her, and yeah, she makes a good point. And John DiMaggio just being funny, just, yeah. But, yeah, how unfortunate, because from John, Hank Azaria, and anybody else that does an impression and does a voice of, like, a black stereotype, you know, no longer voicing most of them. Well, it's like, as an example, Hank Azaria stopped voicing Apu from The Simpsons, and the Doctor character from The Simpsons was given to Kevin Michael Richardson, as well as the voice role of Earl from Futurama, also given to Kevin Michael Richardson. You see? Because, yeah, you know. But, I mean, you know, from Kevin Michael Richardson and you know, Gary Anthony Williams and Cedric, what, like, they don't seem, they never seem to have had a problem with, like, say, John DiMaggio or anybody else. You know what I mean? Just, yeah, you get the point. You know, and also, because other stuff that some of the voice actors talk about, like, say, the voice of, Marion Ross, because when it came to her given the voice role of SpongeBob's grandmother, for those of you that do know, yeah, because her being the voice of SpongeBob's grandmother. And, you know, because I don't think I really quite realized that the same lady who was the mother in Happy Days, yeah, that she was the voice of SpongeBob's grandmother. I didn't quite realize that fully. And also, yeah, I've also seen her in, say, I've seen her in a superhero movie with Drake Bell, the late Leslie Nielsen, Kevin Hart, where she played Aunt Lucille, yeah, the Aunt May of superhero movie, yeah. But yeah, so again, I didn't quite realize that fully, that she was the voice of SpongeBob's grandmother, and her talking about when she got the voice role of SpongeBob's grandmother, and when, you know, as of now, because some people would know her best as the voice of SpongeBob's grandmother. And also, a few things that Nancy Cartwright mentions, well, and as well as the others, like actually doing the voices of the characters that they voiced out in public. And most notably, that goes for Nancy Cartwright, because one where she talks about, like, having a young boy close her eyes, and, you know, then she does the Bart Simpson voice, and then the kid just... you know, Tom Hanks even, I recall Tom Hanks having that same kind of experience where, you know, having a young kid close his or her eyes, and then, you know, he does the Woody voice, and they just... yeah. However, again, most notably for Nancy Cartwright, out in public, and yeah, because her having a YouTube channel, and there have been some videos of this that she's done, well, not just YouTube, but also on TikTok, where, yeah, she would publicly, and not a problem, just, yeah, happy to do so, and to interact with a lot of people, and when they don't realize at first that she's the voice of Bart Simpson, you know, shake my hand, I'm Bart Simpson, and how they're just like, wow, and just, oh. And I've even seen the one where she was at D23 and interacting with a few cosplayers. I think pretty much all of them, yeah, they were cosplaying as characters from The Emperor's New Groove. And her doing the Bart Simpson voice, and some of them just kind of got choked up and just, yeah, that's very sweet. And other things that each of them talk about, like, say, the late Kevin Conroy, because, again, with them out in public and, you know, telling them that they're the voice of so-and-so, for Kevin Conroy, after the 9/11 attack, because he was one of those people, celebrities, voice actors, that helped out those, and he was helping at a restaurant, and he, you know, mentioned this one guy, that worker, that he was the voice of Batman. It was like, I knew it, like, you're that Kevin Conroy, and told everybody in the restaurant that, guess who one of the workers, like, helpers, is serving your food? Batman, it's Batman. Nobody believed it at first. And Kevin Conroy, because obviously he overheard this and knew that, well, he had to do it. And, you know, by saying his famous quote, I am vengeance, I am the night, I am Batman. There was silence for a moment, and then I think, yeah, there was like a bit of cheering, and they laughed, and that was really awesome. Yeah. Yeah. And a bunch of other stories that they each talk about. Also, can't forget to mention this. Well, because, again, with the voice casting directors, the voice casting people, because when trying to figure out, like, whom would be the perfect voice for so-and-so for this animation material, this animated project, and so on. And, you know, when reaching out to the voice actors' agents on the phone and, you know, casting so on so to possibly voice this character and that. And, yeah, very true. Very true. Again, facts. All of this stuff that's talked about, 100% facts. And also, to this day, because, you know, and what's talked about in this documentary, searching for others out there on the internet. Most notably Rob Paulsen, a podcast that he has, and totally free, no payment, and, you know, Rob Paulsen, how very sweet he is, because what he does for this, you know, on this podcast, and reaching out to those, and it's almost like, you know, they're all his friends, and, yeah, you know, there's obviously somewhere out there on the internet, like, say, me, my girl, and everybody else, you know, especially, again, as I mentioned earlier, you know, on the autism spectrum, that can do some really good voices and do some voice impressions. Yeah, finding those out there on social media, on the internet, and how they talk about it, it's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah. Yeah, I could go on and, you know, with this documentary, you know, and because how sometimes they're doing the voices of some of their characters, like D. Bradley Baker, for example, because doing some, like, animal noises, like, just all that he does, or how he can do a spot-on cricket impression. It's amazing. Or say Jim Cummings, like, say, voicing Tigger, Pooh, Darkwing Duck, Ray the Firefly, and so on so. Or, you know, Corey Burton voicing, Siren, you know, the character that he voiced in, Transformers. You know, and also, Peter Cullen. Why wasn't Peter Cullen not a part of this documentary? I don't know, because, yeah, that being another one that I just now thought of, yeah. And, you know, if, hey, the voice of Bobby, Pamela Adlon, you know, if we have her, it would have been nice if What's-Him-Face, the creator of Beavis and Butthead and King of the Hill, and the voice of Hank, it would have been nice, or, I don't know, maybe possibly, Trey Parker, Matt Stone, the guys that created South Park, I don't know, but, you know, I'm sure it would have been nice, but, you know, the documentary, you know, it worked out fine with not having every single, like, voice talent, like, as I mentioned, two whom turned down being a part of this, Frank Welker and Tress MacNeille, yeah. Both of them turning down this. And I was also thinking of this as well. It would have been nice if, say, Rosie Taylor, the voice of Minnie Mouse, or Tony Anselmo, the voice of Donald Duck, if they were a part of this as well. Well, I mean, we did get, say, Bill Farmer, and him doing a little bit of Goofy and Pluto, as well as the voice of Max Goof, yeah, because, well, because how, you know, especially for this, and looking at its IMDb page, how they're randomly credited, yeah, Jason Marsden, yeah, because the voices that he does, and a few that we hear in this. We don't hear Max Goof in this. That's a shame, but yeah. And Rachel McFarlane, like, she mentions one thing about when it comes to, say, American Dad, or just, you know, I think that also especially goes for Family Guy, because how they sometimes, I guess, wouldn't be able to bring anybody else in for any other voice, and how sometimes, you know, those that are heavily involved in like, say, Family Guy and American Dad, they would end up doing most of those voices in an episode or two. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, and how she describes it. Yeah. And also, because another mentioning on Dan and Swampy, the creators of Phineas and Ferb, like, when searching for a voice and, you know, what would fit for, like, say, most notably, Doofenshmirtz, and, well, Dan voicing Doofenshmirtz. Yeah. But, yeah, again, I could go on talking about this documentary, you know? But, yeah, I think I pretty much just about covered everything really good, and just, yeah. And, yeah, and as I mentioned, you know, with, when it comes to, say, the conventions and Comic-Con, well, that was very fitting that was one of the last things talked about in this documentary. Yeah. And the way that this documentary closes off, and how John DiMaggio, well, because, mentioning, as I mentioned, where, you know, why he wanted to do this documentary. and for his peers and his fellow voice acting buddies, paying tribute to them and to show their faces out there. Just, yeah, very kind and sweet of John DiMaggio. And one of the last things that we see, John DiMaggio walking by and looking at a painted, mural of Cartoon Network on a wall, and he's, pointing at, I guess, the letters or something, and how, out of nowhere, Bender pops up, and he sprays something on the wall, on the mural, and it's the end. Well, thank you for that, Bender, but I think Bender's gonna get in trouble for, spray painting on the mural. But anyways, that's Bender for you, and, well, to close off the documentary, and even when the credits start to roll, well, everybody that appeared in this documentary, and with their names shown up, well, they get to do some voices of some of their characters. That was really very fitting, yeah. Yeah, because, say, Breckin Meyer, because he did, say, Boba Fett or Admiral Akbar did their voices in this documentary. Jim Meskimen, well, because, doing his George W. Bush impression. But, for me, and I'm sure for some of you, because definitely doing a spot-on impression of the genie from Aladdin. It's a shame he didn't do his genie voice in this. But he's really good at it, yeah. I mean, there's him and Dan Castellaneta, but of course, as much as they do a fantastic job doing the voice of Genie, they can never top off the late Robin Williams. He was definitely the voice of Genie, without a doubt. Yeah, and one of the last things that we see, and right before the rest of the credits, proceed, because going up, well, archival footage. And this was very fitting. Archival footage of Mel Blanc saying, "Ibbity-bitty-bitty-bitty, that's all, folks." Yeah. Also, very quickly, I have to mention Bob Bergen, because him being the voice of Porky Pig, and how he describes and how to specifically do Porky's voice, with, the desk, chair. That's so funny. And also, not to mention, because I know I named her Kate Miller, because the wife of John DiMaggio, her appearance in this, yeah, because can't forget to mention her, yeah. Two Lovebirds, yeah. And, because Kate Miller, she's done some acting, of course. I can't recall, well, yeah, I don't see why not. Doing some voice acting for, say, video games, because she was in one of the God of War games, yeah. But apparently, because I remember her best, for some reason, because I remember her best being in this Geico commercial, Nord filter, black and white. Maybe you guys know which Geico commercial it is that I'm talking about, yeah. Yeah, not to mention, because speaking of not Geico, Aflac. What the heck's wrong with me? I meant Aflac, not Geico. Jeez, getting it mixed up. Aflac. I'll save that in for my review. Yeah, I'm talking about an Aflac commercial. She was in this Aflac commercial where, it was Noir, black and white, and if by any chance you know what I'm talking about, I'm sure as though maybe some of you do. And speaking of which, because speaking of Affleck, a few of them like doing a Gilbert Gottfried impression, like most notably James Arnold Taylor. Nolan North can do an impression as well, and so can Jeff Bennett. And Troy Baker, yeah. Neither was he in the documentary. That's a shame, but again, not every single voice actor, voice actress being a part of this documentary. But you know what? All of whom was a part of this documentary, and those that weren't a part of it, turned out really good. Yeah. I Know That Voice. To close off, I Know That Voice. It is a fantastic documentary. Yeah, because all about voice acting, and everything that they talk about, you know, the facts and, you know, with cartoons, video games, being out in public, going to conventions, Comic-Con, all that is talked about in this documentary. Well done. And again, you know, I applaud to Lawrence Shapiro, Tommy Red, and John DiMaggio. Oh yeah, and also Brandon Saunier, if I'm saying his last name right. All of them, you know, bringing this documentary to life and what it had to deliver. Fantastic. Everything from beginning to the end. Yeah, I Know That Voice, a fantastic documentary. For all of us who love cartoons, know those voices. Just, yeah, what more do I have to say? I Know That Voice, fantastic. And I'm giving I Know That Voice, well, what the heck, 10 out of 10 stars. Yes, 10 out of 10 stars for I Know That Voice. And what about you guys? What do you think of the documentary itself, I Know That Voice? Any of you that have seen this documentary before, and if it's one of your top favorite documentaries, and how much of an influence this documentary is for you, especially for all of us that love animation, love cartoons, and especially voice acting, and recognizing, identifying, and knowing that voice. What were some of your favorite moments in this documentary and what they talk about? The history, the facts, and with the funny moments and some touching moments, yeah. And all whom was a part of this documentary, with the exception of those that I'm sure some of you, like me, would have liked to have seen make an appearance in this documentary, but they didn't. But again, this documentary turned out really good with not having every single voice actor, voice actress, you know. And with some of the cartoons and piece of animation that was brought up in this documentary from, say, Adventure Time, SpongeBob, Star Wars The Clone Wars, Penguins of Madagascar, yeah, a lot of great stuff in this documentary from beginning to end. Yeah, so again, overall, what do you think of the documentary I Know That Voice itself, and with what I've had to say, my review, and yeah, what did you think of my review? Leave comments and give this review video a like, as always. And so, with all that being said, thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed my review of I Know That Voice. More review videos are on the way. They're going to be awesome. Keep looking forward, and I'll see you guys in the next video / review. Take care, and to get Bender back on the screen, peace out.